He did terrible things for revenge and even more terrible things for love. This is Heathcliff. Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Setare, and today I'm going to be talking about Heathcliff. Heathcliff is one of the main characters in Emily Brontë's 1847 novel Wuthering Heights. As you very well know, Heathcliff is a complicated, multifaceted character. He goes through a hard life and always has his emotions at an extreme, I would say. He's always ready to take extreme measures for what he wants, regardless of how it affects the world around him. The closest classification for Heathcliff can be a Byronic hero, often defined as being cynical, brooding, and having rebellious tendencies, as well as possessing charisma and a mysterious allure. We could say that Heathcliff often has self-destructive tendencies, especially with his relationship with Catherine and his everlasting lust for revenge after she dies. He is extremely distrustful of others, arrogant, and a social outcast ever since his first days. As we know, he was found in the streets of Liverpool. We don't know his origins, we don't know what he went through before he came to Wuthering Heights, but it is popularly believed that he had a early childhood of abuse, which resulted in his later persona. And his romantic relationship with Catherine has been far from what would be a classic romantic novel. It is very controversial and simply extreme in almost all aspects. Yet there is room for compassion and empathy for Heathcliff. He goes through a hard upbringing, especially after Mr. Earnshaw's death. He finds a companion in his meant-to-be sister, Catherine, who he believes has betrayed him after her visit with the Lintons and afterwards, of course, her marriage. He does terrible things for revenge and even more terrible things for love. But he cannot be classified as a villain. He is extremely flawed, but he does have a unique sense of honor. There are many fans of the book who do like Heathcliff, love him even, and there has recently been this trend going around about the tortured villain, the tortured hero, and Heathcliff has also been classified in this archetype, as in he's this tortured man who is actually maybe completely different on the very inside. The first person to make this mistake was Isabella Linton, as we know it. She believed that Heathcliff had this hard exterior to protect himself, but on the inside he was this man full of big romantic gestures and love and softness. Even though Heathcliff made it plainly clear to her that he only wanted her for her money and that he did not love her, she still believed otherwise until it was too late. This is how Heathcliff describes the situation as he's talking to Nellie about Isabella. Picturing in me a hero of romance and expecting unlimited indulgences from my chivalrous devotion. I can hardly regard her in the light of a rational creature, so obstinately has she persisted in forming a fabulous notion of my character and acting on the false impressions she cherished. But at last, I think she begins to know me. I don't perceive the silly smiles and grimaces that provoked me at first, and the senseless incapability of discerning that I was in earnest when I gave her my opinion of her infatuation and herself. It was a marvelous effort of perspicacity to discover that I did not love her. I believed at one time no lessons could teach her that, and yet it is poorly learned, for this morning she announced as a piece of appalling intelligence that I had actually succeeded in making her hate me. A positive labor of Hercules, I assure you. Through this, Emily Brontë makes the identity of Heathcliff clear, not just to Isabella, but to the reader as well, who might be under false assumptions. Now that we have roughly established Heathcliff's character, let's get into his years of agony. In the intro to the 2009 TV adaptation of Wuthering Heights, the camera can be seen going through the fields, moors, and rocks with a breathless rush. I think this represents the real torture that Heathcliff has went through after Catherine's death. He almost catches a breath at the side of the house, but nevertheless yearning eternally for Catherine. As described in a lot of passages that we will read shortly, The main source of Heathcliff's agony after Catherine's death comes from this lingering fragment of hope within him. He has these bursts of hope that keep re-emerging at every turn. It's almost as if Catherine was something he could see through glass. So close, yet so far, so close, yet untouchable. To common sense, Catherine's inevitable death and departure from the world can be seen as the end for this false hope, but not for Heathcliff. In his conversation with Nellie as he was visiting Thrushcross Grange to fetch young Cathy back to Wuthering Heights, he describes the first time he felt Catherine's physical presence after her death, as he was digging her back up on the day that she was buried. This is how the passage goes. Being alone and conscious 2 yards of loose earth was the sole barrier between us, I said to myself, I'll have her in my arms again. If she be cold, I'll think it is this north wind that chills me, and if she be motionless, it is sleep. I got a spade from the tool house and began to delve with all my might it scraped the coffin. I fell to work with my hands. The wood commenced cracking about the screws. I was on the point of attaining my object, when it seemed that I had heard a sigh from someone above, close at the edge of the grave and bending down. If I can only get this off, I muttered, I wish they may shovel in the earth over us both. And I wrenched at it more desperately still. There was another sigh, close at my ear. I appeared to feel the warm breath of it displacing the sleet-laden wind. I knew no living thing in flesh and blood was by, but as certainly as you perceive the approach to some substantial body in the dark, though it cannot be discerned, so certainly I felt that Cathy was there. Not under me, but on the earth. A sudden sense of relief flowed from my heart through every limb. I relinquished my labor of agony and turned consoled at once, unspeakably consoled. Her presence was with me. It remained while I refilled the grave and led me home. You may laugh if you will, but I was sure I should see her there. I was sure she was with me, and I could not help talking to her. So this constant feeling that he had that she's gonna come out of somewhere at any second is a feeling that comes from habit. We all experience this in our day-to-day life. Whoever you live with, if they greet you in a specific way each time you enter the house, each time that you enter, you're gonna subconsciously expect it. And when there isn't a greeting, you're going to feel the silence. So I think this feeling was always at the edge of his nerves, always ready to burst out from his mouth, from his actions at any second. Because I believe after Catherine's death, Heathcliff walked the earth on the edge of a knife for 18 years. This is a following passage describing his feelings that always keep him on edge. I looked around impatiently. I felt her by me. I could almost see her, and yet I could not. I ought to have sweat blood then, from the anguish of my yearning, from the fervor of my supplications, to have but one glimpse. I had not one. She showed herself, as she often was in life, a devil to me. And since then, sometimes more and sometimes less, I've been the sport of that intolerable torture, infernal. Keeping my nerves at such a stretch, if they had not resembled catgut, they would long ago have relaxed to the feebleness of lintons. When I sat in the house with Hareton, it seemed that on going out I should meet her. When I walked on the moors, I should meet her coming in. When I went from home, I hastened to return. She must be somewhere at the Heights, I was certain. And when I slept in her chamber, I was beaten out of that. I couldn't lie there, for the moment I closed my eyes, she was either outside the window or sliding back the panels, or entering the room, or even resting her darling head on the same pillow as she did when a child. And I must open my lids to see, and so I opened and closed them 100 times a night to be always disappointed. It racked me. From our point of view, and oftentimes implicated in the book, Heathcliff's life almost begins with Catherine, all their bitter and sweet memories of childhood and young adolescence they have spent together. Therefore, her early departure from the world in this bitter state of events was especially hard. Heathcliff, in his final attempt to relieve himself of this anticipation for Catherine, opens Catherine's coffin after 18 years to embrace her mortal remains one last time. This is how he describes the feeling. Now, since I've seen her, I'm pacified a little. It was a strange way of killing, not by inches, but by fractions of hairbreadths, to beguile me with the specter of a hope through 18 years. I think that this simple explanation by Heathcliff is actually the best way to put this, because 18 years is a really long time. Even though Catherine was dead, if he could have accepted that she is dead and gone for good, his life might have been completely different. But because he kept believing that she is somehow going to come back, that she is somehow still there, literally every day as he describes it, he goes often to walk on the moors and outside to all the places that they had gone together. He always thinks that she's going to come back, but it's impossible. She's gone. But Heathcliff, as he does say it multiple times, does strongly believe in ghosts and that they still walk the earth. And this is most clearly stated after Catherine's death in the speech that he makes to Nellie in the gardens of Thrushcross Grange. There is yet another aspect to Heathcliff's agony. Heathcliff and Catherine declare themselves not only soulmates, but at times that they are the one and the same soul. A bit different from how usually romantic relationships are described. They identify themselves with one another. The strongest suggestion to this is Catherine and Nellie's conversation after Catherine decides to marry Linton. My great miseries in this world have been Heathcliff's miseries, and I watched and felt each from the beginning. My great thought in living is himself. If all else perished and he remained, I shall still continue to be. And if all else remained and he were annihilated, the universe would turn to a mighty stranger. I should not seem a part of it. My love for Linton is like the foliage in the woods. Time will change it, I'm well aware, as winter changes the trees. My love for Heathcliff resembles the eternal rocks beneath, a source of visible delight, but necessary. Nellie, I am Heathcliff. He's always in my mind, not as a pleasure any more than I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being. I think at times Heathcliff finds himself at a paradox between his love for Catherine and everything that her choices and actions brought upon them, all the way to her death and his eternal curse. He clearly states that he loves, yet resents Catherine deeply, for nothing could have separated them except her own wrong choice. This is how he describes it on her deathbed. Because misery and degradation and death and nothing that God or Satan could inflict would have parted us. You, of your own will, did it. I have not broken your heart, you have broken it, and in breaking it, you have broken mine. He forgives and doesn't forgive Catherine at the same time, because her actions not only hurt him, but herself as well. It is hard to forgive and to look at those eyes and feel those wasted hands, he answered. Kiss me again and don't let me see your eyes. I forget what you have done to me. I love my murderer, but yours? How can I? To me, this feels like Heathcliff is more Catherine than he is Heathcliff, and at times vice versa. This is also implicated by Emily Brontë herself. Upon Catherine's death, Nellie makes this observation of the room. One might doubt in seasons of cold reflection, but not then in the presence of her corpse. It asserted its own tranquility, which seemed a pledge of equal quiet to its former inhabitants. Modern editions of the book have tried to normalize this phrase by using inhabitant instead of inhabitants when referring to Catherine's corpse. But both the 1847 first edition and Charlotte's amended edition of 1850 used the plural of the noun inhabitants when referring to Catherine's corpse, suggestive of Heathcliff and Catherine's joint occupation of her body. One of the peak moments of Heathcliff's agony is when Nellie approaches him to give him news of Catherine's death when he is waiting outside of Thrushcross Grange. He already knows she's dead, and he makes a most memorable speech, indirectly addressing Catherine herself, in which he wishes for torment and agony for her for every day that he is alive. This is it in his words. "May she wake in torment," he cried, with frightful vehemence, stamping his foot and groaning in a sudden paroxysm of ungovernable passion. "Why, she's a liar to the end! Where is she? Not there, not in heaven, not perished, where? Oh, you said you cared nothing for my sufferings, and I pray one prayer, I repeat it till my tongue stiffens. Catherine Earnshaw, may you not rest as long as I am living. You said I killed you. Haunt me then. The murdered do haunt their murderers, I believe. I know that ghosts have wandered on earth. Be with me always. Take any form, drive me mad, only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. Oh God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul." He dashed his head against the knotted trunk, and lifting up his eyes, howled, not like a man, but like a savage beast being goaded to death with knives and spears. He got his wish in his mortal life. As we know, he was, in a sense, completely haunted by Catherine and her memory. After his death, Nellie speaks of country folk who claim to have seen him walking on the moors next to the church or even in Wuthering Heights itself. Joseph says he has seen Catherine and Heathcliff looking out of his chamber window at night ever since the night of his death. We can assume, giving honor to the supernatural, that they were together at long last. Their souls were in mutual torment long before she died, and they likely torment each other to this day. So this is the end of this video. I went over some of my favorite passages of Heathcliff. I think that these really define his agony and his misery perfectly, oftentimes from his own mouth. Even though he's a controversial and dark character, he still remains one of my favorites. Wuthering Heights is truly a phenomenal book, and each character can have a video for themselves. I will keep making this type of videos about books and shows that I love, particularly Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. We will be exploring many more characters. So if you like this type of content, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care of yourself. Bye!